here with Katherine O'Regan, Executive Director of the City Leadership Institute. Welcome, Katherine.
Thank you, nice to be here.
How are you finding the conference?
I think it's been a fairly full 2 days. We've covered a lot of ground. You heard the conversation we were having today about energy.
Yes.
We've covered transport, we've covered really smart organisational work, and we've actually really tried to tackle some of the hard problems.
I see. Yeah, there have been a broad range of speakers from the health sector to transport to at all points in between. One area of interest, of course, is your involvement with the city's Leadership Institute. Could you elaborate on what you do and how you do it?
It comes down to local government in particular are big players, whether it's smart cities or trying to design better transport solutions, or really making places better and more livable. So what we do is we partner with local governments across the country to try and work with them to solve some of those problems. Sometimes it means I spend all day in a workshop. Sometimes I might spend all day one-on-one with the mayor trying to understand their needs, or I might be running a session with some community representatives. It's about bringing those people together, understanding their issues and working out long-term plans to address them. So it's good fun.
Okay, so do you adopt some sort of framework, potentially some mandala principles around smart governance, smart mobilities, and wash out the priorities versus the fanciful ideas of what makes for smart?
I always come down to the fact that every idea is a good idea.
Yes.
It just ends up depending on whether it's a priority.
Well, that's right. Automated helicopters don't necessarily come on the priority list, but they certainly sound great.
They sound great.
So how do you involve the council? Is it that you source councils to engage with, or is there a means by which they approach you? What's the engagement model?
It comes in different ways, and like any good business, there are many entry points.
Right.
So what had happened, particularly with Canterbury Bankstown, who I'm here with at this workshop, is that they came last year on a study exchange. So we led a delegation of about 15 people to Silicon Valley in the US to actually study about what have cities done in terms of governance, communications and community engagement, transport, energy and sustainability to solve in their worlds. So can we learn from them and apply them back here?
Yeah.
So it then meant that Canterbury Bankstown said we need to get a journey ready for smart cities. So they came on the exchange and now I'm working with them a lot more closely. Or it might be that someone just sees us on the internet and says, I really like that article you've written, or that video session that you've there which is trying to impart knowledge. How can we get more involved? So it ends up being a range of touch points to come in and work with us in different ways.
It's very sensible, because in my conversations with various shires or clients is that their entry point is not clearly defined. They need to understand what their strategy is, where they want to go, where they should go, how they should engage with stakeholders, etc. And of course, you would imagine that given government funding and other activities, you would obviously play in that space in positioning them to best approach an application?
Absolutely. So one of the things with particularly the federal government Smart Cities and Suburbs program, we were actually engaged by the federal government to run masterclasses across the country to upskill the capacity of people who are looking to put a grant application in for them. And then post that masterclass, we may have worked one-on-one with a couple just to tidy it up, to make sure that they were clear on what they were trying to achieve, who a good strategic partner may have been, and what's the funding model really on a long-term basis with each of those. So we can come in and almost get them ready to put the framework together and peer review it and pull in experts that they might need to run a particular component or a stream of their work.
Yes, absolutely. And finally, what I've in my work and conversations with various interested parties in the smart space, the urban regional discussion in Australia is unique in that I was having a conversation earlier. Within the urban, it's clean air, clean streets, parking, transport. Within the regional districts, it's really about saving the community, creating jobs, providing something that gets people back into that area, and it's a wonderful time for them if they get it right.
Absolutely. And I think you're right, that sort of divide between that urban core that we 80% of the population live in and the regions. But the regions are fantastic. I do spend a bit of time out in the regions, whether it's Forbes, Parks, Deniliquin, and a lot of it has been exactly as you say. How can the business work with the city government or the town or the shire to sustain jobs? And sometimes that's that transition of industry. Sometimes it's working broader. And one of the great stories was that it ended up being a council I know was the waste supplier for the region, because they only really needed one depot. They didn't need 4 depots.
Right.
And that depot actually then also became the place for people with disabilities to work. So they were a provider of jobs for a specific market. They also housed them, and then they transported them to and from the region. So they actually, as a council, said, this is what we do, and we do them really well, and this will create jobs and a part of our economy, which is different to where they used to be wheat growing. And then the others actually specialised in something else. So the regions have a very different mix. Even though distances are massive, they do collaborate quite a lot.
Yes, and you can see that. You can see that through the conference.
Yeah.
Not simply at the, but even there's an enthusiasm that what are you up to? What are you doing? Where can we perhaps cross-reference or get more information?
A little bit of rivalry in the city.
Yeah. Of course, everybody wants to be the one, don't they?
They do.
Well,
they
look,
do.
it's been great. I can't let you go without saying, if people want to learn more about the Leadership Institute, is there a website or something that we can...
It's easy. It just says citiesleadership.com.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Katherine,
All right.
and it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Likewise, yeah. Take care.
Thank you.